Welcome to Stories of Mattoon, the podcast where the quiet roads and corn-lined horizons of central Illinois come to life. Here, in this small town, shaped by hard work, faded storefronts, and generations of family roots, history isn't something in a textbook. It's something people still live every day. In each episode, we sit down with local historians, lifelong residents, and Toonies, whose lives have been shaped by Mattoon's past and present. These are the stories that built the town, told by the people who keep them alive today. So, pull up a chair and join us in talking about anything and everything Mattoon.
Yeah. Come on in, Tom. Play it so pretty.
Yeah.
I like that. Hey, everybody. This is your friends and fellow Toonies, Jordan and Tom, recording our pilot episode of Toonie Loons, the podcast that brings the voices of Mattoon straight to you. From local legends to everyday stories, we're here to share the moments, memories, and characters that make this little town unforgettable. Welcome to Toony Loons. Hey, what's going on?
Woo!
Tom, we made it.
I know, this finally happened.
Oh, man. This has been in the works for about, we're thinking around 2 years.
At least, yeah.
Yeah. In between doctor's office, visits and recording sessions and bad weather, we managed our way to procrastinate it for about 2 years.
Yeah, but we are right now technically doing it. The threshold has been crossed. We have entered.
It's too late to go back now.
We got to go with it. We got to go with it. So I guess as we've discussed, the part of Mattoon that was is the question is the what, when, where, how, and why. Historically, we'll go through medieval times up to, it was just a prairie. Okay. So post a glacier, there was a prairie there. There wasn't much of a forest. I heard that, the trees were fairly, rare, and it was Native Americans of sorts. But then why did we get here?
Who put the X on the map?
Yeah. How did it happen? What was the first, where did Mattoon begin from? And the name is derived from an apple variety from Connecticut. No, it's a guy that was a railroad man, and and as we'll discover in our adventures here, how much the railroad played into Mattoon's beginning. But it was a prairie before that, and just farmers, and most of the farmers were just living off of their own thing. They weren't necessarily even selling their crops prior to 1854. Incorporated part of Mattoon. I think that's when Mattoon became Mattoon. I know we can ask Chris.
I really envision it as Mr. Mattoon in a suit, just pulling up.
Here is Mattoon.
Yeah, not so much there, not there, but right in through here, and putting that X on the.
And map. I want to know if Mattoon ever lived in Mattoon. We don't have like a Mattoon farm to pull off of.
We're gonna get to the bottom of all. We're
gonna figure this out.
And who better than to tell us? It would be Mr. Chris Surdieck, who's just got a book out as of the other day.
Yeah, The Big Dig.
The Big Dig, and he gave a presentation in Mattoon at the library, and we're going to be discussing various parts of his book, and then asking him some questions, go from there.
I feel like we're going to have to talk to him a couple times.
Oh yeah, he's definitely gonna be a callback. He's just a treasure trove of just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to anything and everything Mattoon. So
as the episodes evolve, they're gonna get more into stories that many of our listeners may have been a part of, and we're just gonna use Mr. Certic as kind of a
He's going to keep you honest.
Yeah, he's going to keep you honest. He's going to be the truth serum of the podcast. And as far as from a historical, we know that history is written by the victors, but we want to know how the victors described Mattoon and its beginnings. So I don't know. Should we give him a call? Dig into this?
Yeah, we'll give him a call, and then actually next week, believe we have Bernie de Buhr coming up, and he can add some things. We'll talk to Bernie, and he's always fun to talk to.
I feel like there might be jazz involved.
Oh, yeah. You will definitely have to talk jazz, maybe some hot sauce, and talk about the old feed and seed store.
Hot sauce.
Yep. All right. Sounds good. Let's get started. Let's give Chris a call.
Right on the dot.
Hey, we kind of surprise ourselves sometimes. Okay. So we've got Chris Surdieck joining us via phone, and welcome to the podcast, Chris.
Well, thank you. It's fun to chat with you guys. I have been here at the Mattoon Public Library since 2018. I retired from the electrical supply business after 47 years in 2017, and after about a year, I decided I needed to have a project. So with the blessing of the director of the library here, I started collecting and archiving and creating what is now the full basement of the Mattoon Public Library as a history center. So over the course of that time, I've generated a lot of different displays and a lot of different files, and have just really dug deeply into the history of Mattoon.
I think a lot of people have come to know you now as being our local
history guy.
Local historian, and you've had the access to the library and all kinds of different documents then.
Exactly, and modestly, I would say that I've kind of become the go-to guy, but I always really point out I tend to have a good memory and can recall facts, but I also have the advantage of since I've created this space, I've got just an endless wealth of documents, files, high school yearbooks, city directories, phone books, newspaper archives, a photo file that consists of over 15,000 images. So
wow.
Sometimes it becomes a challenge for me to remember where I put something, but I've got a lot of stuff at my fingertips.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, you're going to have to send us some of those pictures. We're going to add a few images as we go, and we'll be talking with you. We want to talk about your book that you just have written that's coming out. It is out, isn't it?
It is out, yes. In fact, we had I did a presentation on the book here at the library last night, and in spite of the winter snow advisory and the snow that probably kept a lot of people in, we were gratified that about 45 people braved the elements and showed up. So one of the major stories in Mattoon, and one of the things that has been a focus for me almost from the beginning, is the digging of what we in Mattoon kind of generally call the subway, not to be confused with the New York Underground subway. Mm-hmm. But in 1914, the Illinois Central Railroad, in order to compensate for a lot of different issues, decided to lower their tracks through Mattoon and go under the Big Four tracks. So the Big Four Railroad was the East-West Railroad that came through Mattoon, and they had a 2-track main line, and that connected Indianapolis and St. Louis. And then the Illinois Central, of course, went through Mattoon north and south, and they had a 2-track main line, and they met at a junction that was for years and years and years called the MX crossing, and MX was the telegraph code for Mattoon. And over the years, that became very problematic for the Illinois Central because they were required to yield the right-of-way to the Big Four Railroad because it had been here first. So in 1914, they undertook a mammoth project to dig what we call the subway. You could call it alternately call it a canyon, a ditch, the Big Dig, and they started north of Mattoon with a giant steam shovel. And at the same time, they started south of Mattoon with another giant steam shovel and excavated a canyon through Mattoon that is on an average 27 feet deep and up to 100 foot wide to accommodate their mainline tracks.
Wow.
And so the book that we just published here at the library is a pretty thorough documentation of that entire project, and it included all of the secondary projects, putting the bridges over connecting the streets, moving all the utilities, building 2 new passenger depots, putting in new sidings and a wealth of new tracks and switches. So it was a very comprehensive project. And it was also referred to at the time as the $1 million dig, because in 1914, the Illinois Central spent $1 million to do that project.
Wow. And why Mattoon?
Yeah, I was going to say, what was that had to have been, that probably could have been another city that could have been chosen. So why, is there any reason why Mattoon was given that $1 million?
Oh, absolutely. There were several reasons, and one of which is that Mattoon, the east-west tracks, the big 4 tracks, Mattoon sits up on a ridge, and so the Illinois Central had a big grade to make coming from the south. And as the trains got longer and heavier, it became problematic for those trains to make that grade, especially when they were required to stop and yield the right-of-way if a big 4 train was on the track, because, like I said, the big 4 actually owned the crossing. Yeah. So that created a big problem. But going back all the way back to 1855, when Mattoon was founded, Mattoon was the first city in Illinois other than Chicago that had a crossing point of 2 major railroads. The Big 4 Railroad was the major east-west connection between, like I said, Indianapolis and St. Louis. And through Indianapolis, that railroad connected with all of the East Coast railroads. So this was the main thoroughfare for a lot of east-west travel through the central part of the United States. And of course, the Illinois Central and their motto was Main Line of Mid-America. And so they had a main line that went from Chicago down to Cairo and eventually all the way to New Orleans. So yes, there could have been, and eventually there were some other cities, but at that time, Mattoon was the major crossing point for those 2, was the only crossing point for those 2 major railroads in central Illinois. So Mattoon wasn't selected arbitrarily. It was because this was ground zero for those 2 railroads to cross.
Wow. Now, how did the railroad schedule dictate life when people ate, slept, socialized? How did it change the city in those aspects?
Well, Mattoon was a railroad town in the truest sense of the word. In fact, a little bit of additional history. There was no town here. When the railroads crossed, this was all farmland and prairie land. There wasn't even so much as a general store here. It was all open prairie land, and the 2 railroads happened to cross right here at this point because of when they did the surveying and everything. And picking the best route for the 2 railroads, they were bound to cross someplace, and it just so happened that they crossed right here. So Mattoon actually sprang up after the rail crossing. Within 6 months of the 2 railroads crossing here and beginning operations, several businesses started up: a general store, a grocery store, a hardware store, a couple of hotels to service, a couple of really pretty rudimentary hotels back in those days, 1855. Mm-hmm. So really and truly, the town owes its existence to the railroad. It wasn't a factor of a railroad coming through an existing town. The railroad existed, and the town sprang up around it. And by the time of the Civil War, 1861, Mattoon had become a major railhead and served as a major rail point for the Union Army and especially the Illinois volunteer regiments. And between at the start of the Civil War, Mattoon was about 1,400 people, And by the end of the Civil War, 1865, Mattoon had a population of about 5,000, and that was all due. And that was all due to the traffic and the businesses and the volume of people coming through Mattoon during the Civil War.
Was that so when the railroad was running through in those early structures, and hotels? Which part of Mattoon was that? Was that the western, or was that what we think of as Broadway?
That was what we think of as Broadway. I mean, it was everything radiated out from the central point of Broadway and what we know is basically the 1,500, 1,600, and 1,700 blocks of Broadway. When the town was originally platted, the west side of the city limits of the original plat were just maybe a few blocks west of where the Illinois Central Railroad came through. Okay. And then as the town started to grow, it grew to the west and encompassed the next section. So by the time of the Civil War, Mattoon extended about 30 plus blocks east and west.
Oh, wow. And so how did that transform the economy? I mean, almost overnight. What kind of businesses existed only because of the railroad? Well,
that's a very good question. Obviously, it worked both ways because the railroad served to bring goods and services and the news to the people of Mattoon. So Mattoon quickly became a mercantile center and a trading center for this general area. And so the railroads would bring products, equipment, farm equipment, goods from the East Coast and from Chicago and from the South. They brought produce. So quickly, Mattoon developed as a center of commerce. General stores, hardware stores. As early as the Civil War era, we had probably half a dozen general stores, 3 or 4 apothecaries, 2 banks, and that type of thing. But then the other side of that was the railroad also became an outlet for goods and services to leave Mattoon, specifically farmers, because before that, the farmers had a very limited market. What they didn't use for their self-subsistence on the farms, they had a limited market. But coming with the railroads, all of a sudden, Mattoon, within a few years, a couple of grain elevators sprang up, and farmers could bring their crop to the elevator, and then it would get shipped out by rail to other points. And along with that, there were several, in the early days, there were a couple of produce wholesalers here who bought eggs, chicken, meat, and dairy products from the local farmers, and then shipped it out by rail to other cities. And within a short order of time, produce from Mattoon was making its way all the way to Chicago and all the way to the East Coast. And then another thing that provided a big boom at that time was in the late 1800s, early 1900s. This area became the growing conditions were just perfect here for what we know as broom corn, which was the tassels were used to make brooms. And so Mattoon and Coles County became Coles County was considered to be the broom corn capital of the United States in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And so several broom corn brokers and warehouses sprang up here in Mattoon alongside the railroad tracks, and they would buy the harvested broom corn from the farmers and bale it up and ship it to points all over the United States where small factories would make whisk brooms, push brooms, kitchen brooms, and in fact there were also several broom factories right here in Mattoon, and they would ship their finished product out. And of course the other thing that the railroad, in addition to that, is it created quite a building boom, and so that created an opportunity for even in the early days, Mattoon had 3 or 4 large lumber yards, and most of their finished lumber came in by rail. So again, it was it's kind of the chicken and the egg story. Did the town thrive because of the railroad, or did the railroad thrive because of the town? But by the early 1900s, both railroads had huge roundhouse and repair shops here because the steam engines that were operating at that time by rail on the rail took a tremendous amount of maintenance, and they used a tremendous amount of coal, and they consumed a tremendous amount of water. So Mattoon became a coaling and watering stop for all of the steam engines that were transversing the prairie both directions, and also we had major repair shops here. Both railroads had large roundhouses where the engines would go in and be broken down and reconditioned and overhauled and put back in service. By the about 1920 or so, the two railroads, the Big Four and the Illinois Central, between them employed about 1,500 men here in Mattoon.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Wow. Was there ever any accidents or disasters? I'm sure there was, probably in building the system, and then afterwards, anything.
Oh yeah, there is. I mean, there were lots of recorded. Well, for one thing, at the railroad crossing itself, there were quite a few mishaps. Cars getting loose, engines bumping each other, that type of thing. And then, of course, there were railroad and automobile accidents. There were some derailments. I mean, you can go down the list, but probably the key factor in determining the Illinois Central to lower their tracks through Mattoon was on September 29th, 1911. A Big Four engine was starting through the crossing because he had the right-of-way, and an Illinois Central fast freight coming up from the south was trying to beat the crossing and collided head-on with the Big Four locomotive, and it flipped it over, and the engineer was killed. And so when that accident happened, the state then stepped in and said, you have to do something to protect this crossing. So that was kind of you might say, the catalyst for the Illinois Central to then decide to lower the tracks and eliminate that grade crossing.
Wow.
So which part of town would that have space been in? Would it still be where, the bridge?
Yeah, it happened just directly north of where the Illinois Central Depot is today.
Okay. And with those early structures, what's the oldest still standing structure in Mattoon?
Oh, that would be kind of hard to pinpoint because a lot of the buildings on Broadway that are still there go back to the 1870s, probably. Wow. 1880s.
I didn't realize they were that old.
Yeah, the Call Lumber Company building that everybody knows on Richmond Avenue was originally the Coddington Lumber Company, and that warehouse building was built in 1872. Wow. So, and they're still using it today.
That's where I got my first pair of boots.
Yeah, there you go. But quite a few of the buildings on Broadway date back to the late 1800s, anywhere from about 1870 up. Probably the biggest building boom was in the 1890s because a lot of the buildings that had been built on Broadway originally were framed wooden buildings, and so they got torn down and replaced with the brick and stone buildings that we see today.
All right, a lot of them, the bricks, built right on site there, weren't they?
Yes, they were. Mattoon had 3 brick foundries at the turn of the century.
Wow. Well, we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back with Chris Surdieck.
Ladies and gentlemen, gather around. Big things are happening in the proud little town of Mattoon, Illinois, a place where the corn stands tall, and now so do the ambitions. The brand new Emerald Acres facility has sprung to life, backed by our friends at Rural King. And that's not all, folks. New establishments like Chipotle, Chick-fil-A, and Texas Roadhouse are rolling into town, bringing fresh new flavors, new faces, and maybe even a smile to young Johnny's face, which is no small feat these days.
Okay, we're back with Chris Surdieck. Chris, Now, in writing your book, tell us one of your favorite stories that you could relay.
Man, that's kind of a tough question, because the whole story is fascinating. I would think probably the favorite story, if I had to say a favorite story, it would probably be all of the politicking that went into place to decide where they were going to put the bridges, because every street, as they dug the subway, every street got cut half in two, and so the plan was to bridge some of those streets, which you'd have to connect, but they never intended to bridge all the streets because of the expense and the practicality of it. Right. So there was a lot of drama and a lot of uproarious city council meetings as people went and lobbied to have their street be one of the streets that was bridged. So that's probably kind of an interesting anecdote to what happened. Yeah.
Wow, it'd be a fly on the wall there. That would have been a time. And what are we talking as far as a population at the time, Chris, for the town?
Well, this was 1914, and they had just had a census, and the Mattoon's 1910 census was 14,000 people, which is kind of ironic that in 1914 we had 14,000 people.
Wow! Oh yeah! Wow!
Toontown.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. We give us just a second here. Well, I did have a question about the, how the railroad played into the social structures of the town and how it influenced that. The socioeconomic classes and there, were divisions probably created at some point.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, the people that worked for the railroad, those were considered great jobs back in the day. I mean, the railroad payroll was the most important payroll in Mattoon, and just like any industry, you had a tiered system. I mean, the locomotive engineers were obviously the highest paid. They were considered to be, not wealthy, but prosperous. And then you had, going down from there, you had the firemen and the brakemen and the boiler tenders, and then you got down to the guys that just did the maintenance on the tracks and scooped the coal. I mean, so even within the railroad structure itself, it was a tiered economy. But there were the Mattoon, like I said, had formed as a great mercantile center because we were all the towns around. The people came here, to shop and to trade, and Mattoon, because of that, Mattoon became quickly known as also as a banking center because the banks financed a lot of the development, and then of course the merchants and the farmers that were frankly prospering, they were investing their money in real estate and investing in the banks. And for example, what we know today here in Mattoon is First Mid-Illinois Bank and Trust has its roots all the way back to 1865 when it was formed as the First National Bank of Mattoon, and it was actually the first national bank chartered in the state of Illinois.
Wow.
So Mattoon has been a banking center, and then of course one of the other things goes all the way back to before the turn of the century. In 1894, Iverson A. Lumpkin formed the Illinois Consolidated Telephone Company, which is still in business today as Consolidated Communications, and a fellow named Mike Vrem worked for them for years and years and years.
Tom's dad.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've been in all their buildings.
I'll bet. I'll bet.
We just talked with Mike last night.
Yeah. So Mattoon has so because of that, Mattoon has thrived in various other ways. And then one of the other things that really over the years as things changed, the broom corn, like I said, was an important business. Well, that flagged for one reason is because a lot of the broom corn production moved to Oklahoma and Texas because it could be raised there cheaper and a longer growing season. So the broom corn business kind of flagged. But by the early 1930s, Mattoon kind of became the financial center of the Illinois oil basin, and because of the size of the city and because of the of all the goods and services here, a lot of the oil men located here. So Mattoon became kind of ground zero for the geologists and the oil companies and the oil brokers that were trading in the oil that was coming out of the Illinois oil basin, which is really pretty much everything, south of Mattoon. But Mattoon became the financial center, and in addition to the financial center, it became a lot of the legal profession here in Mattoon began to specialize on mineral rights law, and for example, the Craig and Craig law firm here in Mattoon was nationally known as mineral rights attorneys. And almost every major oil company, I mean, you can run down through you can start naming them off, Humble Oil, Carter Oil, Exxon, Phillips 66, Texaco, all of the major oil producers all had offices here in Mattoon to conduct their buying and selling and drilling businesses. So
I just remember growing up wise, there was always an oil rig, like either part of town that I'd be driving around or we'd be going in or out of town. We'd always see these little oil rigs, even right next to Lytle Park. Or
right in it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's still, the one in Lytle Park is still operating.
Wow.
And I just took that for granted. I just thought that every town everywhere had those. I didn't realize that was a Mattoon item.
At one time, during that boom, and of course, like I said, Mattoon was really kind of on the north end of the production. Most of the major production took place south of here, down in Cumberland County, Richland County, Effingham County, Fayette County. But like I said, all the financial stuff took place here. But in the height of that, Mattoon had the Mattoon area itself had about 200 operating pump jacks.
Wow. Yeah, that's ironic. You mentioned Craig and Craig because I remember Rich Record, his office. He always liked to look at the trains. It was right there. Of course, where Craig and Craig's at, so he could look outside and see the trains coming and going, and he enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Craig and Craig goes back. Gosh, they were are they the first law firm in Mattoon?
I don't believe they were the first, frankly, but they go back a long way. In fact, an interesting little fact, and you can look this up on Google. They are the oldest law firm in the United States still operating in their original location.
Oh, wow. That's really neat.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Well, what's the name of the book?
It's called The Big Dig.
The Big Dig. That's what I thought.
Yes.
And where can people buy the book?
Well, we have a storefront on the Mattoon Public Library website, and it is also on the Mattoon Public Library Facebook page. So you can order it online through PayPal directly from the library. This was a project, of course, I did the book, but the library acted as the publisher, and all proceeds go to support the library. So because of the fact that the library acted as the publisher, it's not available on, it's not available on the Amazons of the world because of the logistics, and frankly, because we did this as a fundraiser. Amazon's cut is more than we wanted to relinquish.
Yeah, understandable.
But we're doing a very brisk business on or doing a local business, people locally can come in and buy the books at the front desk, or they can order them online, and we're shipping. We're shipping online orders. I wish I could say daily, but we're shipping weekly. So we've had very good response, and have had a lot of. Have already had the book has been out now long enough that I have had a lot of very good positive feedback from people who have bought it and have read it, and it's chock full of photos.
Oh, great. Yeah, we'd like to share some of those. We'll put some of those up on the podcast.
There are 170 photos in the book.
Wow. Yeah, that's neat. Okay, we're going to take another break here, and we'll be right back. Well, hello, friends. Have you been feeling a little stressed out, tired, or just plain overwhelmed by your daily duties? Well, the solution is finally here. And wouldn't you know it, your doctor insists upon it. Yes, sir. The good folks at Corn Belt Cigarettes are proud to offer the only smoke endorsed by 9 out of 10 local physicians. The 10th one, well, he was out sick that day for reasons we can't disclose. Crafted from premium sun-kissed leaves and wrapped with the kind of care usually reserved for newborn babies, Corn Belt cigarettes are guaranteed to soothe away your nerves. Why, some doctors say a Corn Belt after dinner can settle the stomach, improve your posture, and according to one particularly enthusiastic dentist, put that shine on your teeth. Corn Belt cigarettes, recommended by experts who definitely went to some kind of school. So go ahead, follow doctor's orders, light up a Corn Belt, breathe easy, and remember, if it was good enough for Grandma Mabel, it's probably sort of fine for you. Okay, we're back with Chris Surdieck, and we've decided that we're going to probably have Chris back. There's just so much to talk about with him, and being our local historian, would it be okay to check back in with you?
Oh, absolutely. There are endless stories and endless anecdotes that I would be pleased to share with you.
Oh, that would be great. That would be great.
We're ready.
Chris. Yes. Okay, that's Chris Surdieck. The book is The Big Dig. And again, you can purchase that at the Mattoon Public Library. And where was that else? I messed that up. I'm sorry, Chris. Where else was it for sale?
Oh, it's online. It's at the front desk or online. So we don't have any other retailers at this point. So it's just available through the library.
Okay, it sounds like a plan. We're going to talk with Bernie de Buhr later, and so we should have some good stories out of Bernie. And yeah. So of course he goes way back.
So I was kind of wondering, because I was trying to connect. If that part of where the villa used to be and de Buhr is at, if that part is how much older it is, or I guess younger than Broadway.
Well, it kind of developed. Probably most of those buildings are probably a little older than some of the Broadway buildings, but so like the de Buhr building, and Bernie will tell you this, his great grandfather started that in I believe. I'm going to say 1914. The House Brothers Tavern that everybody, it's an icon of Mattoon. That
Sure.
opened in 1905 in the same building. So those buildings have also got some of those buildings have got quite a history to them.
Yeah, we and then the my great grandfather started Schilling Funeral Home. That was 1903. So
right.
I always gave Bernie. I was like, oh, we got you by a couple of years, Bernie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, Chris. Well, thanks again, and thanks so much for being on Toonie Loons.
Okay, you bet. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, sir.
All right, thanks. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much, Chris. And now we're going to take a break, and here's a word from our sponsors.
Have you been worried about fire, heat, or pesky little drafts? Fear not, citizens. Introducing Super Shield Asbestos, the miracle material that doctors, engineers, and even the retired spelunker all agree is absolutely indispensable. Line your walls, ceilings, and even your stove. Enjoy unmatched durability, remarkable heat resistance, and a look of modern industriousness that will make your neighbors nod with envy. Protect your home, elevate your style, and wrap your world in the confidence of true innovation. Rest assured, friend, you can breathe easy knowing Super Shield Asbestos is the solution for just about everything. Well, except maybe living forever, but who's counting?
All right, we're back. Well, I guess that about puts the pilot in the bag there, Tom.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun.
We did it.
We did it. And we're going to do it again. Next week, we're going to be talking with Bernie de Buhr and everything from jazz to hot sauce to, his roots in Mattoon with the
good old cooking.
Store.
Good old cooking.
Good old cooking. And hey, if you've got a suggestion, a story, or something that you'd like to hear on the podcast, then just let us know. Drop us a line. All right, Tom.
Let's
hit the theme.
Come on.
All right. Bye now.